The year was 2157, and Earth looked very different than it did 200 years ago. All the countries had joined together to make one big government called the Terran Defense Coalition. Admiral Jake Morrison was the leader of all Earth's space forces. He was a tall man with gray hair and smart eyes that had seen many battles in the outer colonies. Humans had built cities on Mars and several moons around Jupiter. They had also started small settlements on planets near other stars. Their spaceships were good but not the best in the galaxy. Most alien races thought humans were still learning how to travel between stars properly. Dr. Maya Henderson worked in a big research center in New York. She studied alien life forms and had never seen a real alien in person. She spent her days looking at data from deep space sensors that watched for anything strange coming toward Earth. The sensors could see ships moving between stars from very far away. On a cold Tuesday morning, Maya noticed something on her screens that made her heart beat fast. There were many ships moving toward Earth's solar system. The computer counted 500 vessels, all traveling together in perfect formation. No human fleet was that big, and no friendly aliens had ever visited Earth with so many ships. Maya called General Colin Price at the Terran Defense Command right away. Colin was a serious man who never smiled much, but always listened carefully to important news. When Maya told him about the approaching fleet, he became very quiet for a long time. The alien ships belonged to something called the Zephyrian Empire. They were tall beings that looked like they were made of living crystal. Their bodies could create and control energy in ways humans did not understand. They had conquered over 200 worlds in the past 1,000 years and thought they were the strongest race in the galaxy. Commander Vex Kalar led the Zephyrian invasion fleet. He was ancient even by his people's standards and had destroyed 43 different civilizations. To him, humans were just another weak species that had grown too bold by spreading to other star systems. He planned to make Earth surrender quickly and turn all humans into slaves. The Zephyrian ships were much more advanced than anything humans had built. They were powered by captured starlight and could move faster than human vessels. Their weapons could destroy a human ship with one shot. Vex Kalar expected the conquest of Earth to take less than one day. Admiral Morrison stood in the command center of the space station that protected Earth. Around him, dozens of officers worked at control panels monitoring everything happening in space. When the news about the alien fleet reached him, he called an emergency meeting with all the leaders of Earth's government. The human fleet had only 80 ships spread across 3 star systems. Most of them were cargo vessels that had been given weapons. Earth's best warships were good for fighting space pirates, but had never faced a real military force from another world. Everyone knew the humans were badly outnumbered. Dr. Henderson worked day and night trying to learn more about the approaching aliens. She found old records from deep space explorers who had seen Zephyrian ships before. The aliens always demanded surrender before attacking. They believed other races should obey them because they were stronger and older. General Price began moving all human ships back toward Earth. He ordered the colonies to hide their people in underground shelters. The plan was to make the aliens think Earth was more important than the outer settlements. Maybe they would ignore the colonies if Earth kept their attention. Captain Lisa Wade commanded a squadron of 20 fighter ships. She was young, but had learned to fly in battles against pirates near the asteroid belt. Lisa studied everything the scientists could tell her about Zephyrian tactics. She noticed they always fought in straight lines and expected their enemies to do the same. Engineer Tony Garrett worked in the shipyards around Earth's moon. He was trying to upgrade human weapons to work better against alien technology. Tony found that human machines used different kinds of energy than most alien devices. This might cause problems for ships that got too close to each other. Communications specialist Beth Carter sat in a room full of radio equipment trying to listen to alien signals. The Zephyrians sent messages to each other using energy patterns that hurt human ears. Beth wore special headphones and worked with computers to translate what the aliens were saying to each other. As the alien fleet got closer to Earth, more people began to panic. Some wanted to surrender right away to avoid a fight they could not win. Others said humans should fight even if they had no chance of victory. Admiral Morrison had to decide what Earth would do when the aliens arrived and demanded obedience. The Zephyrian ships would reach Earth in 72 hours. Commander Vex Kalar was already preparing his surrender demands. He had done this so many times before with other worlds. Soon, Earth would join his empire and humans would work as slaves, building ships and weapons for their new masters. At least that was what he thought would happen. The Zephyrian fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. Their ships were beautiful and terrible at the same time. Each vessel looked like it was carved from a single piece of glowing crystal that pulsed with inner light. The largest ship was 10 times bigger than anything humans had ever built. Commander Vex Kalar sat on his command throne watching displays that showed him everything about the human solar system. He saw their small fleet gathering around Earth and their primitive space stations. To his ancient eyes, it all looked like toys that children might play with. He had seen this same scene dozens of times before on other worlds. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship called the TDS Valiant. Through the main viewing screen, he could see the alien fleet arranged in perfect geometric patterns. Each ship held its exact position without any movement or drift. It was like looking at a formation of deadly jewels floating in space. The first communication from the aliens came as a broadcast sent to every radio and television on Earth. Commander Vex Kalar's image appeared on screens around the world. His crystalline face showed no emotion as he spoke in perfect human language that his computers had learned by listening to Earth's broadcasts. The alien commander's message was simple and direct. Humans would surrender their planet and all their colonies within 24 hours. They would destroy their weapons and submit to Zephyrian rule. Any resistance would result in the complete destruction of human civilization. Vex Kalar had given this same speech 43 times before, and it always worked. Admiral Morrison recorded his reply in the command center surrounded by his staff officers. He looked directly into the camera and spoke in a calm voice that did not show any fear. Earth would never surrender to invaders, no matter how powerful they seemed. Humans had fought for their freedom before, and they would fight again. The Admiral ended his message by telling the aliens to leave human space immediately. When Vex Kalar received Morrison's reply, he was genuinely surprised. Most species surrendered as soon as they saw his fleet. Some tried to negotiate or beg for mercy. None had ever told him to leave. The alien commander decided these humans needed a demonstration of Zephyrian power before they would become reasonable. Captain Lisa Wade was already flying toward the asteroid belt with her squadron when the alien demonstration began. 3 Zephyrian ships moved toward Mars, where humans had built their largest colony. The alien vessels fired beams of concentrated energy that turned one of Mars's moons into glowing dust in less than 10 seconds. The destruction of the Martian moon was meant to terrify humans into submission. Instead, it made them angry. Lisa's fighters reached the asteroid belt and spread out among the floating rocks. She had studied how the aliens moved their ships and noticed they always stayed in formation, even when there was no need to do so. Engineer Tony Garrett was working frantically in the lunar shipyards when he made an important discovery. The energy fields that protected human ships operated on different frequencies than Zephyrian technology expected. When he tested captured alien equipment samples, the 2 energy types interfered with each other in strange ways. Tony called Dr. Henderson immediately to report what he had found. Maya was still studying everything the deep space sensors could tell her about the alien fleet. She realized that Tony's discovery might explain why the Zephyrians had never encountered resistance like this before. Most alien races used similar technology, but humans had developed their own unique approach. Communications specialist Beth Carter had been listening to alien transmissions since their fleet arrived. The Zephyrians were talking to each other about human tactics, and they sounded confused. They kept using words that meant things like strange and unexpected and illogical when they described what human ships were doing. Captain Wade used the asteroids as cover while her fighters moved closer to the alien patrol ships. The Zephyrians expected enemies to approach in straight lines for honorable battle. Instead, the human pilots darted between rocks and attacked from directions the aliens were not watching. It was like a pack of wolves hunting creatures that had never seen wolves before. The first real battle happened when Lisa's squadron ambushed 3 Zephyrian patrol vessels. The alien ships were much stronger, but they were built for fighting other ships that behaved predictably. Human fighters came at them from above and below, and from angles that made no tactical sense according to everything the aliens had learned. About space warfare, one human fighter managed to get close enough to ram its nose into an alien ship's energy projector. The explosion destroyed the human craft, but also damaged the Zephyrian vessel's main weapon. The alien crew could not understand why anyone would sacrifice their life and ship just to hurt an enemy. In their culture, warriors retreated when defeat was certain. Engineer Tony worked through the night building new weapons based on his discovery about energy interference. He created special torpedoes that would cause alien shields to collapse when they hit. The weapons were crude compared to Zephyrian technology, but they used principles the aliens had never encountered before. Dr. Henderson coordinated with scientists around Earth to study pieces of destroyed alien equipment. Every fragment told them more about how Zephyrian technology worked. The aliens were very advanced, but they had built everything according to the same basic patterns they had used for thousands of years. Admiral Morrison watched reports from the first battles and began to develop a larger plan. The aliens were stronger, but they seemed unable to adapt to unexpected tactics. If humans could keep surprising them, it might be possible to win despite being outnumbered. Morrison ordered all human ships to avoid direct confrontations and instead use hit and run. Attacks, Commander Vex Kalar was becoming frustrated with these primitive humans. His patrol ships reported that human fighters appeared and disappeared like ghosts. They struck quickly and then vanished among asteroids or behind moons before Zephyrian weapons could target them effectively. This was not how civilized wars were supposed to be fought. The alien commander decided to end human resistance with overwhelming force. He would bring his entire fleet to Earth and destroy every human ship at once. Surely these strange tactics would fail when faced with 500 Zephyrian warships attacking together. Vex Kalar had no idea he was about to make the biggest mistake of his very long life. Dr. Maya Henderson had been studying captured Zephyrian technology for 3 days without sleeping. The alien equipment was fascinating and terrifying at the same time. Every device was made from the same crystalline material as the aliens themselves. Maya realized this was not just their building material, but actually part of their biology. Working with physicist Dr. Alex Rodriguez in his laboratory deep under the Rocky Mountains, Maya made a discovery that changed everything. The crystalline structure of Zephyrian technology resonated at very specific frequencies. When human electromagnetic equipment operated near alien devices, it created interference patterns that the aliens had never experienced before. Alex had been studying Earth's natural magnetic field for 20 years. He knew that the planet was surrounded by invisible energy patterns that protected it from solar radiation. These same energy patterns could be amplified and focused using the right equipment. If they could turn Earth's entire magnetosphere into a weapon, the results might destroy every alien ship that came too close. Admiral Morrison listened to Maya and Alex explain their discovery in the command center. Around them, tactical displays showed the Zephyrian fleet moving toward Earth in a massive formation. The aliens had abandoned their hit-and-run tactics and were bringing every ship they had for one final overwhelming assault. The plan Maya and Alex proposed was incredibly dangerous. They would need to modify every power generator on Earth to broadcast on the same frequency at exactly the same time. If they made any mistakes, the energy feedback could destroy Earth's electrical systems and leave the planet defenseless. But if the plan worked, it would turn the aliens' greatest strength into their greatest weakness. Captain Lisa Wade brought her surviving fighters back to Earth's orbital defense stations. Her squadron had been reduced to 12 ships after a week of fighting in the asteroid belt. The pilots were exhausted, but they had learned valuable lessons about how to fight the aliens. Lisa reported that Zephyrian ships were strong but not as flexible as human vessels. Engineer Tony Garrett was installing the new resonance equipment in power stations all over Earth. Every nuclear reactor, solar collection array, and fusion generator had to be modified to broadcast electromagnetic pulses on Maya's specified frequency. Tony had teams of technicians working around the clock to finish the modifications before the alien fleet arrived. Communications specialist Beth Carter was monitoring Zephyrian transmissions when she heard something that made her blood run cold. The aliens were planning to demonstrate their power by destroying one of Earth's major cities before demanding surrender again. They had chosen New York because it contained the largest concentration of human government and military facilities. Admiral Morrison knew he had to act fast to save millions of civilian lives. He ordered all human ships to begin what appeared to be a desperate evacuation of Earth's orbital stations. The ships moved in panic patterns that suggested the human fleet was preparing to abandon the planet rather than face the full Zephyrian armada. Commander Vex Kalar watched the human evacuation with satisfaction. Finally, these strange creatures were behaving in a logical manner. When faced with hopeless odds, they were trying to save their leadership and flee to their outer colonies. The alien commander ordered his fleet to pursue the escaping humans and destroy them before they could establish resistance elsewhere. The Zephyrian fleet accelerated toward Earth in perfect formation. 500 crystalline ships moved like a school of deadly fish through the space around the planet. Vex Kalar planned to capture the fleeing human vessels and then broadcast their surrender to every human colony. This conquest would serve as an example to other species who might consider resisting the Empire. Captain Wade led what appeared to be a desperate rearguard action to protect the evacuating ships. Her fighters darted between the alien vessels, firing their weapons in seemingly random directions. The Zephyrians thought the humans were making futile gestures of defiance before their inevitable defeat. They had no idea that Lisa's pilots were actually herding the alien fleet into a specific position. Dr. Henderson and Dr. Rodriguez monitored their equipment from the command center deep under Colorado's mountains. Every power generator on Earth was now connected to their resonance network. The system would only work if the alien fleet was positioned within Earth's magnetosphere, where the natural energy fields were strongest. Maya watched her displays and waited for the right moment. Ground-based Commander Steve Parker had been secretly positioning artillery and missile batteries around every major city on Earth. The weapons were disguised as civilian construction projects and emergency broadcast towers. When the aliens came close enough to attack population centers, they would discover that Earth's entire surface was one giant fortress. The first human evacuation ships reached the edge of Earth's gravity well, with the Zephyrian fleet in close pursuit. Admiral Morrison timed his next move perfectly. He ordered the evacuation ships to suddenly reverse course and attack the alien fleet from behind. At the same time, Captain Wade's fighters stopped retreating and began attacking the aliens from the sides. Commander Vex Kalar realized he had been tricked when human ships appeared from every direction at once. The evacuation had been fake, and now his fleet was surrounded inside Earth's magnetosphere. But Zephyrian ships were still superior to human vessels, and he had 500 of them against less than 80 human craft. The aliens should still win easily. Maya Henderson gave the activation signal to Dr. Rodriguez, who pressed the button that would change the course of the war. Every power generator on Earth began broadcasting electromagnetic pulses on the frequency that would resonate with Zephyrian crystal technology. The planet's natural magnetic field amplified the signal and focused it on the alien fleet. The effect on the Zephyrian ships was immediate and catastrophic. Their crystalline hulls began vibrating at frequencies that tore their atomic structure apart. Energy systems that had worked perfectly for thousands of years suddenly began feeding back on themselves. Alien crews found their own bodies resonating with the same destructive frequency as their ships. Vex Kalar watched in horror as his mighty fleet began destroying itself. Ships that had conquered dozens of worlds were shaking apart like glass bells struck by hammers. The electromagnetic resonance was affecting every piece of Zephyrian technology, including the life support systems that kept his crews alive. Human ships moved in for the attack while the alien fleet was crippled by the resonance field. Captain Wade's fighters destroyed alien vessels that could barely move or defend themselves. Admiral Morrison's larger ships used their primitive but effective weapons to finish off Zephyrians that were still trying to fight back. Engineer Tony Garrett monitored the resonance equipment and made adjustments to keep the frequency stable. The system was working better than anyone had hoped, but it was also putting enormous strain on Earth's power grid. Several cities had already lost electricity as generators overloaded trying to maintain the electromagnetic field. In less than 30 minutes, the greatest military force in Zephyrian history was reduced to scattered wreckage floating in Earth's orbit. Commander Vex Kalar's flagship was one of the few vessels still intact, but his crystal body was cracking from the resonance effects. He sent a desperate message to his surviving ships ordering them to retreat to safe distance. But Admiral Morrison had anticipated this too, and Captain Roy Fisher was waiting with a pursuit fleet beyond the resonance field's range. The resonance field continued to tear apart Zephyrian ships as they tried desperately to escape Earth's magnetosphere. Commander Vex Kalar's flagship was shaking so violently that pieces of its crystalline hull were breaking off and floating away into space. His crew was dying as their crystal bodies cracked and shattered from the electromagnetic frequency that Dr. Henderson had discovered. Pilot Jake Sullivan flew his fighter through the wreckage of what had been the most powerful fleet in the galaxy, just 1 hour earlier. Debris from destroyed alien ships glittered like deadly snow in the light from Earth's sun. Jake's squadron was hunting for any Zephyrian vessels that were still capable of fighting back. They found very few. The electromagnetic resonance was affecting more than just the alien ships and crews. Every piece of Zephyrian technology was breaking down at the atomic level. Their weapons would not fire, their shields had collapsed, and their engines were consuming themselves. The aliens had built their entire civilization using the same crystalline principles, and now those principles were being used against them. Ground-based Commander Steve Parker watched his hidden artillery emerge from concealed positions all around Earth. What the aliens had thought were civilian radio towers and construction projects were actually military installations that had been disguised for years. Every major city on Earth had been secretly turned into a fortress, while the Zephyrians were still traveling toward the solar system. Steve's artillery began firing at the crippled alien ships that were trying to escape the resonance field. The weapons were primitive compared to Zephyrian technology, but the aliens could no longer defend themselves. Human missiles and energy beams struck targets that would have been impossible to hit when the alien shields were working properly. Marine Colonel Kate Brooks led boarding parties onto damaged Zephyrian vessels that were still intact enough to enter. Her soldiers wore special armor that protected them from the electromagnetic resonance that was destroying the aliens. Kate's mission was to capture alien technology and take prisoners who could provide information about the Zephyrian Empire. The first boarding operation was terrifying for both sides. Kate's Marines had never seen living aliens before, and the crystalline beings looked like walking sculptures made of colored glass. The Zephyrians had never been boarded by enemies and did not know how to fight in the narrow corridors of their own ships. Human soldiers fought with weapons and tactics that horrified the alien crews. The Zephyrians expected civilized warfare with rules and honor codes. Instead, they faced Marines who used explosive charges, chemical weapons, and hand-to-hand combat that seemed savage and primitive. Kate's soldiers would do anything necessary to win. Dr. Paula Scott was a xenotechnician who specialized in understanding alien equipment. She accompanied Kate's boarding parties to study Zephyrian technology while it was still functioning. Paula discovered that the aliens used living crystal computers that thought and made decisions like biological brains, but processed information much faster than human minds. The alien computers were connected to every system on their ships, including navigation, weapons, and communication networks. When the resonance field damaged these crystal brains, the ships lost their ability to coordinate with each other. Zephyrian vessels that had moved in perfect formation for centuries were now drifting randomly through space. Admiral Morrison coordinated the battle from his command center while monitoring reports from all across the solar system. Human ships that had been hiding in the outer asteroid belt were now emerging to attack any Zephyrian vessels that tried to escape toward the edge of the system. The aliens were trapped and their numbers were decreasing rapidly. Captain Roy Fisher commanded a pursuit squadron that had been positioned beyond Earth's magnetosphere specifically to catch fleeing aliens. His ships were equipped with the new, hybrid technology that engineer Tony Garrett had developed by combining human and captured Zephyrian systems. The hybrid vessels were faster and more maneuverable than pure alien craft. Roy's squadron intercepted a group of 12 Zephyrian ships that had managed to escape the resonance field. The alien vessels were damaged, but still dangerous if they could reach safe distance and call for reinforcements from their empire. Roy could not allow any of them to escape and report what had happened at Earth. The space battle between Roy's hybrid ships and the fleeing Zephyrians was unlike anything that had ever happened before. Human vessels moved with alien speed while using tactics that no Zephyrian commander had ever encountered. The aliens tried to fight according to their traditional rules, but the humans ignored those rules completely. Jake, Sullivan's fighter squadron, joined Roy's pursuit group, and together they destroyed 8 of the 12 escaping alien ships. The remaining 4 Zephyrian vessels were badly damaged and their crews were barely alive. Commander Vex Kalar was aboard one of those ships, and he was beginning to understand that his empire had made a terrible mistake. Back in Earth's orbit, Marine Colonel Kate Brooks was exploring the interior of Vex Kalar's massive flagship. The ship was larger than some human cities and contained technology that would advance Earth's civilization by centuries. Kate's teams were collecting everything they could carry while the resonance field continued to weaken the ship's structure. Intelligence. Officer Nancy Clark was analyzing the information that Kate's Marines had recovered from alien computers. The crystal brains contained detailed maps of the entire Zephyrian Empire, including the locations of military bases, supply depots, and conquered worlds. Nancy realized that Earth now knew more about alien territory than most Zephyrians did. The information also revealed something that changed everything about the war. The Zephyrian Empire controlled over 200 worlds, but most of those planets were inhabited by other alien species that had been conquered and enslaved. The Empire was not as strong as it appeared, because it depended on keeping dozens of different races under control through fear and superior technology. Dr. Henderson was studying captured Zephyrian crew members in a medical facility that had been hastily converted to hold crystalline beings. The aliens were dying from resonance damage, but Maya was learning valuable information about their biology and psychology. She discovered that Zephyrians had not fought a real war in over 300 years because most species surrendered without resistance. The last phase of the battle began when engineer Tony Garrett's hybrid weapons were installed on Admiral Morrison's flagship. The TDS Valiant now carried technology that was part human engineering and part Zephyrian science. The ship could move faster than any pure human vessel, and its weapons could penetrate alien defenses that had never been breached before. Admiral Morrison used his upgraded flagship to hunt down the remaining Zephyrian ships that were still trying to escape the solar system. Each alien vessel that was destroyed meant one less ship that could return to the Empire and report Earth's location and capabilities. Morrison intended to make sure that no Zephyrian would ever return home to tell their people what had happened. The battle that Commander Vex Kalar had expected to win in less than 1 day had lasted 6 hours and resulted in the complete destruction of his invasion fleet. Fewer than 20 Zephyrian ships remained intact, and most of those were too damaged to travel faster than light. The greatest military disaster in the history of his empire was ending with total defeat and the capture of their most advanced technology by primitive humans. Commander Vex Kalar sat in the ruins of his command center, watching his mighty invasion fleet burn in the darkness of space around Earth. Half of his ships were completely destroyed, and the other half were so badly damaged they could barely maintain life support. The electromagnetic resonance had stopped, but the damage was already done. His empire's greatest military force had been defeated by creatures he had considered primitive animals. The surviving Zephyrian ships tried to form up for a retreat toward the edge of the solar system, but their coordination was gone. The crystal brains that had controlled their formations were either destroyed or malfunctioning. Ships that had moved like a single organism for centuries were now struggling to communicate with each other using backup systems that had not been used in generations. Admiral Morrison had anticipated this exact situation, and his response was already in motion. Captain Roy Fisher's pursuit squadron had been reinforced with additional ships equipped with hybrid human-Zephyrian technology. The new vessels combined the best aspects of both civilizations and were superior to anything either species had. Built alone, Roy's enhanced fleet moved to intercept the retreating aliens before they could escape to faster-than-light travel. The Zephyrian ships were trying to reach the heliopause where the solar wind ended, and they could safely engage their damaged jump drives, but Roy's hybrid vessels were faster and arrived at the intercept point first. Dr. Paula Scott had been studying, captured Zephyrian navigation systems for the past week, and had made a breakthrough that changed the entire nature of the conflict. The alien star charts contained detailed information about their empire's structure, including the locations of military bases, supply routes, and communication networks spread across hundreds of star systems. More importantly, Paula discovered that the Zephyrian Empire was not as unified as it appeared from the outside. The crystal beings controlled their territory through a complex network of subject races that had been conquered over the centuries. Each conquered world was forced to provide resources and soldiers to maintain the Empire's expansion, but the subject races were kept weak and divided. Intelligence Officer Nancy Clark coordinated with resistance cells that Captain Lisa Wade had secretly established during humanity's earlier exploration missions. These cells had been planted on worlds throughout the local galactic region as insurance against exactly this kind of threat. Nancy activated them all simultaneously using captured Zephyrian communication codes. The resistance cells began attacking Zephyrian supply lines and communication networks across dozens of star systems. The subject races that had been enslaved by the Empire saw the attacks as a signal that rebellion was possible. Worlds that had been quiet for centuries suddenly erupted in coordinated uprisings against their crystal overlords. Captain Roy Fisher engaged the fleeing Zephyrian fleet at the edge of the solar system in a running battle that lasted 3 hours. The alien ships were trying to escape while Roy's hybrid vessels pursued them through the outer planets and into the comet clouds beyond Neptune. Every Zephyrian ship that was destroyed meant one less vessel that could return to warn their empire about Earth's capabilities. The space battle was fought using tactics that neither side had ever experienced before. Roy's ships moved with alien speed, but fought with human unpredictability. The Zephyrians tried to use their traditional formation fighting, but their coordination systems were too damaged to maintain proper positioning. Individual alien ships found themselves isolated and outnumbered by enemies they could not outrun. Engineer Tony Garrett was monitoring the performance of his hybrid technology from Earth's command center. The combination of human engineering and Zephyrian science was working better than anyone had hoped. Human ships equipped with alien power systems could accelerate and maneuver in ways that defied everything Earth's scientists thought they knew about physics. But Tony also noticed that the hybrid systems were unstable and required constant adjustment to prevent catastrophic failures. The human and alien technologies were not naturally compatible, and forcing them to work together created unexpected problems. Several hybrid ships had already been lost when their power systems exploded during combat maneuvers. Dr. Maya Henderson was interrogating captured Zephyrian officers in a specially shielded facility that blocked the electromagnetic resonance effects. The crystalline beings were terrified of her because she represented something they had never encountered before. Maya was learning that the Zephyrian Empire had become complacent after centuries of easy victories against weaker species. The aliens had developed a rigid, military doctrine based on overwhelming technological superiority and the assumption that other races would surrender when faced with hopeless odds. They had never adapted their tactics to deal with enemies who refused to follow the established rules of civilized warfare. Maya realized that humanity's greatest advantage was their willingness to do whatever was necessary to survive. Admiral Morrison was planning the next phase of the war while monitoring reports from across the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire was facing rebellions on multiple fronts, and their ability to respond was limited by the loss of their most powerful fleet. Morrison saw an opportunity to strike at the heart of alien territory while they were weak and disorganized. Captain Jake Sullivan was leading reconnaissance missions to alien worlds using ships equipped with advanced stealth technology derived from captured Zephyrian equipment. His squadrons were gathering intelligence about enemy defenses and identifying targets for future attacks. Jake discovered that many Zephyrian military bases were surprisingly weak because the Empire had never faced a serious external threat. The final pursuit battle ended when Roy Fisher's squadron cornered the last group of retreating Zephyrian ships near the orbit of Pluto. Commander Vex Kalar's flagship was among the survivors, and the ancient alien commander finally understood the magnitude of his failure. His invasion force had not just been defeated, but completely destroyed by enemies he had dismissed as insignificant. Vex Kalar sent a final transmission to his surviving ships, ordering them to scatter and try to reach Zephyrian space using different routes. He hoped that at least one vessel would survive to warn the Empire about the humans. But Roy's hybrid ships were faster than the damaged alien craft, and the pursuit continued into interstellar space. Communications specialist Beth Carter was intercepting desperate messages from Zephyrian commanders across the galaxy asking for reinforcements to deal with the spreading rebellions. The subject races that had been suppressed for centuries were rising up everywhere at once. The crystal beings were discovering that their empire had been built on a foundation of fear that was now crumbling. Dr. Paula Scott made another important discovery while studying captured alien technology. The Zephyrian faster-than-light communication system was based on quantum entanglement between crystal nodes spread throughout their territory. By capturing and reprogramming these nodes, humans could monitor all alien communications and even send false messages to create confusion among enemy forces. The Zephyrian Empire was beginning to collapse from within while facing external pressure from human forces that seemed to appear everywhere at once. Worlds that had been loyal for generations were declaring independence. Military commanders were losing contact with their superiors. Supply ships were being destroyed by enemies that should not have existed. Commander Vex Kalar's flagship was finally cornered by Roy Fisher's squadron in the empty space between star systems. The ancient alien leader realized that he would never see his homeworld again. His last act was to send a warning message towards Zephyrian space describing the terrible creatures that had destroyed his fleet and were now spreading across the galaxy like a plague of destruction. But even that final message would never reach its destination because Captain Nancy Clark's resistance cells had already captured the communication relay stations that would have carried it. The Zephyrian Empire was losing the ability to coordinate its defenses just when it needed that coordination most. Earth's children were coming and nothing could stop them. The Zephyrian High Council met in emergency session on their crystal homeworld of Zeph Prime for the first time in 300 years. The ancient beings had ruled their empire from this chamber for millennia, but had never faced a crisis like the one destroying their civilization. Reports were coming in from across their territory, describing coordinated attacks, rebellions, and the complete loss of contact with entire sectors. Supreme Chancellor Keth Voran was the oldest member of the council and had personally overseen the conquest of 40 different species. His crystalline body showed cracks of age that indicated he was over 2,000 years old. Keth Voran had received the last transmission from Commander Vex Kalar, describing the complete destruction of the invasion fleet and warning about the dangerous humans who had defeated them. The Council initially refused to believe that their greatest military force had been destroyed by a primitive species that had barely learned to travel between stars. But as more reports arrived from across the Empire, it became clear that something unprecedented was happening. Worlds that had been peaceful for centuries were rising in coordinated rebellion while unknown attackers struck military installations. With impossible precision, Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship as it entered Zephyrian space for the first time. The TDS Valiant had been completely rebuilt using captured alien technology and now looked more like a hybrid creation than a purely human vessel. Behind Morrison's ship followed a fleet of 200 vessels crewed by humans who had spent months learning to use Zephyrian equipment. Captain Jake Sullivan had been promoted to Commodore and now commanded an entire battle group of hybrid ships. His forces had been striking deep into alien territory for weeks, destroying communication relays and supply bases while avoiding major fleet engagements. Jake's tactics were based on the guerrilla warfare that had worked so well in Earth's solar system. The human invasion of Zephyrian space was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen before. Traditional conquests involved massive fleets moving slowly from system to system while establishing supply lines and garrison forces. Human forces appeared everywhere at once, using captured alien navigation data, and moved too quickly for the Empire to coordinate an effective response. Dr. Maya Henderson had established a research facility on a captured Zephyrian supply station where she continued studying alien biology and technology. Her work had revealed that the crystal beings were actually a collective consciousness that shared thoughts and memories through quantum-entangled crystal networks. Disrupting these networks caused individual Zephyrians to become confused and unable to coordinate with their fellows. Maya's discovery led to the development of quantum disruption weapons that could sever the mental connections between Zephyrian individuals. When these weapons were used against alien military units, the crystal beings became isolated and began making tactical errors that human forces could exploit. The Empire's greatest strength was being turned into a weakness. Engineer Tony Garrett had established production facilities throughout captured Zephyrian territory to build hybrid technology that combined the best aspects of human and alien engineering. The new ships and weapons were superior to anything either civilization had created alone, but they required careful maintenance by engineers who understood both technological approaches. Ground-based Commander Steve Parker was leading the liberation of worlds that had been conquered by the Zephyrian Empire centuries ago. Many of the subject races were eager to fight against their crystal overlords, and Steve provided them with captured alien weapons and tactical training. The rebellions spread faster than the Empire could suppress them. Intelligence Officer Nancy Clark had taken control of the Zephyrian communication network by capturing key relay stations and reprogramming their crystal brains. Nancy could now send false orders to alien military units while intercepting their real communications. Confusion spread throughout the Empire as commanders received contradictory instructions and lost contact with their superiors. The Liberation campaigns revealed the true nature of the Zephyrian Empire to human forces. The crystal beings had conquered hundreds of worlds, but had never tried to understand the species they ruled. They simply demanded obedience and resources while keeping their subjects weak and divided. The empire was held together by fear rather than loyalty or shared purpose. Captain Lisa Wade was coordinating with resistance movements on dozens of worlds, simultaneously using quantum communication systems captured from the aliens. The subject races had been waiting for centuries for someone to show them that the Zephyrians could be defeated. Lisa provided them with proof that rebellion was possible and support to make it successful. Marine Colonel Kate Brooks led assault. Teams that captured Zephyrian military installations throughout their territory. Kate's soldiers had learned to fight in the low-gravity crystalline cities where the aliens lived and had adapted their tactics to deal with enemies who could manipulate energy with their thoughts. The Marines used psychological warfare that terrified the crystal beings. The Zephyrian military was discovering that their traditional tactics were useless against human forces. The aliens had always relied on technological superiority and the assumption that enemies would fight according to established rules. Human commanders ignored those rules and created new ones that favored adaptability and innovation over raw power. Dr. Paula Scott was reverse engineering Zephyrian faster-than-light technology to create human vessels that could travel between star systems in days rather than months. The new engines used principles that human scientists had never imagined, but Paula's teams were learning to build and maintain them. Earth's colonies could now be connected by rapid transportation networks. Supreme. Chancellor Keth Voran made the decision to sue for peace when human forces appeared in the Zeph Prime system itself. The ancient being had never imagined that aliens could penetrate to the heart of his empire, but Admiral Morrison's fleet was now orbiting the Zephyrian homeworld. The crystal cities that had stood for 10,000 years were defenseless against human attack. But Admiral Morrison and the Terran Council had no intention of accepting Zephyrian surrender. The aliens had tried to enslave humanity and had conquered hundreds of other worlds over the centuries. Morrison demanded complete dismantlement of the empire and freedom for all subject races. The Zephyrians would be allowed to keep their homeworld, but nothing else. Commodore Jake Sullivan led the final assault on the Zephyrian capital city, where the High Council had ruled their empire for millennia. The crystal spires that had seemed eternal were shattered by human weapons, while alien civilians fled in panic. Jake's forces captured the government complex and arrested the surviving council members, including Supreme Chancellor Keth Voran. The last transmission from the Zephyrian Empire was sent by Commander Vex Kalar from a prison cell on Earth where he was being held for war crimes. The ancient alien had survived the destruction of his fleet only to witness the complete collapse of his civilization. His final message to the galaxy was a warning about the terrible species that had emerged from a small blue planet. Vex Kalar's transmission described humans as the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy because they refused to accept defeat and would adapt to overcome any obstacle. He warned that other species should avoid contact with Earth because humans would either destroy them or absorb them into their expanding civilization. The galaxy would never be the same now that humanity had left its homeworld. Admiral Morrison stood in the ruins of the Zephyrian capital, watching his soldiers establish human administration over the former empire's territory. Earth's children had not just survived their first contact with hostile aliens, but had conquered their attackers and inherited their empire. The species that had been dismissed as primitive now controlled hundreds of worlds and commanded the loyalty of dozens of alien races. The transformation was complete, and the galaxy had learned the price of underestimating humanity.